Clearlake City Council and Redevelopment Successor Agency, Clearlake City Hall Council Chambers at 14050 Olympic Drive, Clearlake, California. Thank you all for viewing tonight's City Council meeting. I'd like to call this, as a reminder, if you are on Zoom, in our Zoom meeting as a participant, please put yourself on mute unless you're speaking. We're currently live streaming this meeting on the city YouTube channel and Lake County Pig TV live stream YouTube channel. Madam Clerk, can I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Overton.
Here.
Councilmember Claffey.
Here.
Councilmember Kramer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Purdock.
Here.
Mayor Sluten.
Here. Pledge of allegiance. Councilman Claffey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vice Mayor Purdock, would you begin?
Our dear Father in heaven, we ask that your spirit would join with us tonight, that we may do the good work that is necessary here within the city of Clearlake and our surrounding neighbors. We ask that you would lead us and guide us, that we make wise decisions that are going to benefit those who live here, who enjoy visiting here. And we ask a special blessing upon the staff and the leadership here at the city for their wisdom and their good work that they've been doing over these past months and years. And we ask for relief for so many that are struggling in this city and the county. And we say this all in the Savior's holy name. Amen.
All right. While we're operating under virtual meeting guidelines, I'll explain our meeting procedures. The agenda items will be open for public comment before final action is taken. Citizens wishing to comment on any agenda item should email the city clerk or submit their comment to our town hall portal. Comments received will be read aloud either by myself or a staff member during the agenda item. If you are on Zoom, please raise your hand if you want to speak and you will be called upon. If remote participants encounter technical difficulties, I will ask that we continue discussing the item and the participants can rejoin when the technical difficulty is resolved. Again, if you are a participant who is not speaking, please mute your computer to prevent distractions from the current speaker. Next item, do we have any changes to the agenda? Mr. Laura?
No changes, Mr. Mayor.
Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion by Councilwoman Overton and a second by Councilman Kramer. Can I have a vote, please? Roll call. Just a regular vote. Voice vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, this is the time for public comments. Public comment will be accepted via email and through the city's town hall portal prior to the start of the meeting. Each public comment emailed to the city clerk will be read aloud by the city clerk for up to 3 minutes or will be displayed on the screen. Public comment, emails, and town hall submissions, which are received after the beginning of the meeting, will not be included in the record. If any member of the public viewing the meeting on Zoom wishes to speak, please click your hand button on your screen. Do we have any public comments, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I did receive one public comment via email, which I'll read, and then if there are members of the public on Zoom who wish to speak, we can call on them. The email public comment is from Joanne Cox, and who states, I have concerns about the Hope Center. I live behind the Hope Center. Since it is opened, I've had things stolen from my yard. My water was used many times. My gate left open. The bells were taken off, so I couldn't hear them open the gate. When the Hope Center put up the fence in my backyard, they left a 3.5 feet opening so people have been climbing through. Someone pooped in my backyard and my front yard. I hear people fighting in the Hope Center yard and using foul language and dogs barking. I would like the center to finish out my fence so nobody can climb into my yard anymore. We were promised security when we were invited to the ice cream social that had no ice cream. I don't feel safe anymore.
I believe that all council received an email from a group called CNA, the Conscientious Neighborhood of the Avenues. I believe they're here to talk about the item number, whatever it is on the agenda. We'll go down to presentations, and we have a proclamation.
Mr. Mayor, we do have someone raise their hand in the Zoom.
All right, please let them proceed. Go ahead, sir, or
So Hayden Smith. You can go ahead and speak.
go ahead, Mr. Smith.
No, we've lost them.
We lost him.
There are no further hands raised in the Zoom room.
Okay, we'll go to presentations then. March for Meals Month. Whereas on March 22nd, 1972, President Richard Nixon signed into law a measure that amended the older Americans Act of 1965 and established a national nutrition program for seniors 60 years and older. Whereas the Meals on Wheels Association of America established the National March for Meal campaign in March of 2002 to recognize the historic month, the importance of older American senior nutrition programs, and raise awareness about senior hunger in America. Whereas the 2021 observance of the March for Meals campaign provided an opportunity to support the senior nutrition programs that deliver vital and critical services by donating, volunteering, and raising awareness about senior hunger. Whereas volunteer drivers for Meals on Wheels program in Clearlake are the backbone of the program. And they not only deliver nutritious meals to homebound seniors and individuals with disabilities, but also caring concern and attention to their welfare. And whereas senior nutrition programs provide nutritious meals to seniors throughout the city and help them to avoid premature and unnecessary institutionalization. Whereas senior nutrition programs also provide a powerful socialization opportunity for millions of seniors to help combat loneliness and isolation. Whereas senior nutrition programs in Clear Lake deserve recognition for the contributions they have made and will continue to make to our local community. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Clear Lake does hereby proclaim March 2021 as March for Meals Month and urges every citizen to take time this month to honor our senior nutrition programs and the seniors they serve and the volunteers who care for them. Our recognition and involvement of the national 2021 March for Meals campaign can enrich our entire community and help end senior hunger in America. So no senior goes hungry. Dated the 4th day of March, 2021, and signed by me and Mayor George Slogan. I think, do we have anybody to receive this? Maybe Joyce?
I think I'll do that.
All right, Joyce, and thank you for all you do with this program. Yeah, please.
So, yeah, I just wanted to let the community know that, we serve about 75% more than what we normally serve this last year due to the COVID virus, where a lot of people didn't even know that we, do these type of things. Our Meals on Wheels drivers are all volunteer. So we're very lucky that we don't have to pay out any money as far as we do give them some gas mileage money to help with their repairs on their cars because our roads still unfortunately are not the best. But, I just want to show that I, really appreciate my Meals on Wheels drivers and everything that they put into that and all our volunteers that help keep our programs going. We're just a small as far as employee wise, we're very small, but our volunteers really help make this go. And so Also is we will be having a drive-through fundraiser. It'll be a honey garlic salmon on the 26th, Friday the 26th, for $25, and we're going to give you a really awesome meal. So to take, I unfortunately do take home, but hope people will call the senior center at 994-3051 and purchase your tickets. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we go to the consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda? Anybody wants to pull any items? Anybody from the public wants to pull any items on the agenda?
I've not received any comments on any consent item, and there's no hands raised in the meeting.
All right, can I?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Have a second?
Second.
A motion by Councilman Kramer and a second by Councilman Clappy. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we go to item number 6, presentation on downtown strategy by the manager, Laura. I believe this is your item.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So Jen Gregory with Downtown Strategies is going to give the presentation while she's getting ready. She's the president of Downtown Strategies, been working with them for a little while. Just give a slight background. So as the council is aware, we started a relationship with Retail Strategies for retail attraction a couple of years ago, and not quite 2 years ago now, but anyway, as that relationship has developed, we've seen a lot of success from their efforts, and we became aware of Jen's new role in starting sort of a partner company with them called Downtown Strategies, and they've been working on developing a strategic vision for our downtown area. And so I think Jen will be better at explaining all this than I could ever be. So I'd like to just introduce Jen to the council and turn the mic over to her.
Well, thank you, Alan, and good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak with you tonight and to answer any questions that you may have. As Alan mentioned, our company has had the pleasure of working with Clearlake for quite some time, first in a capacity to recruit national retail, and then that relationship expanded into a partnership focusing on the downtown area. Just a little bit of background. We have been in the area a couple times over the last few months, even in the midst of COVID. We were appreciative of the opportunity to visit with your community. Myself, as Alan mentioned, I'm Jen Gregory. I'm the president of Downtown Strategies. My colleague, Elliot Cook, who is our director of real estate, accompanied me on a couple of visits to Clearlake. And then, of course, Matthew Tate, who many of you, I think, know through a couple of previous presentations. And his role is specifically related to national retail recruitment, whereas Elliot and myself are more focused on the downtown area. So really our process when we began our partnership with Clearlake, it's really a 3-part partnership. We started out in the discovery phase, where we spent time understanding the market of the downtown Clearlake area. You guys have a really rich history of being a resort town and really hosting a number of guests and visitors for vacations many decades ago. And understanding that history and how the Clearlake downtown and the market as a whole has evolved to the present, and specifically how COVID has affected the market, has been very important to us. The next phase, as you see on the screen, is our connection phase. And that gave us the opportunity, like I mentioned, in the midst of COVID, very appreciative of that opportunity to visit with you guys in both July and October of 2020 to really understand your market with getting our feet on the ground and meeting with your stakeholders. That's a very important part of our process, not only to run the data and understand the downtown area as a whole from an economic status, but also hearing from your property owners, business owners, and other community leaders about their experience in the downtown and what they perceive the future to be. And then finally, the next phase is our advance phase. And that is where we assemble a strategic plan that is focused on really being implementable. I mean, that is definitely something that Alan communicated with us early on, was that the city did not want another plan that was just going to sit on a shelf, that it was very important that our strategies be action-based, market-driven, and implementable. And so that was definitely our charge and really what the foundation of downtown strategies is. And through our assessment, we focused on what we call the 5 pillars. These are all the elements that we think make up a healthy downtown. First off is market analysis. We need to understand how the downtown is performing economically so that we can know how to advance the downtown. Next is policy and administration. We feel like it's very important that there be sound public policy to lay the foundation for growth. Next is design, where we analyze the streetscapes, the facades of buildings, connectivity, and walkability. Followed by tourism and promotion, where we identify what are those opportunities for really promoting Clearlake as a tourist destination. Of course, you have the wonderful asset of the lake, which we had the pleasure of experiencing when we were in the community, followed by economic vitality. Obviously, that is what I perceive to be the goal of the council, and certainly ours at Downtown Strategies, is that downtown not only be a place of economic vitality, but that it be an economic engine for your community. So we were pleased to have the opportunity, like I mentioned, first to visit Clearlake in July of 2020, to really do a brief assessment and to understand what the assets were of the community and what some of the challenges were. Then subsequently, we visited Clearlake in October of last year, where we held dialogue sessions with some of you and certainly members of your community. During these dialogue sessions, we really tried to provide an opportunity for the stakeholders of the community to share their vision, their challenges, their struggles, and also what they perceive to be opportunities in the downtown. And we were extremely encouraged by what we heard. So through this process, we were able to create a customized strategic plan for downtown Clearlake. That strategic plan is broken down into 3 categories of implementable strategies. The first category are those no-cost opportunities that do take some time and effort, but don't take actual capital to implement. Many of these things really require organizing, training, and just getting all the pieces in place to implement some of these more specific opportunities. Next up are the 1 to 3 year recommendations and strategies, some of which you see highlighted in green on this slide, and we'll go into these briefly in just a few moments. But in this category of recommendations, our goal is to identify those strategies that do have opportunity to be implemented within 1 to 3 years and do take some capital investment, but not a significant partnership, public-private partnership, or capital investment. Followed by those strategies that are more of a 3 to 5 year timeline for implementation, and that do require some type of investment, whether that be municipal investment or public-private partnership. And you see some additional strategies highlighted in green as well, which we'll briefly go through in the next few slides. So quickly want to identify a couple pieces of data that we were able to complete for Clearlake's downtown. And the first is this walkability assessment. Obviously, with any vibrant downtown, the notion of walkability and connectivity is pivotal. When you look on the left hand of this slide, you see a map, and this blue area outlined is what we perceive to be the downtown focus area. It includes all 3 of your parks, Austin Park, Highlands Park, and Redbud Park, and really feel like this is the corridor that is most appealing to downtown development. When we measure factors such as walkable distance between boundaries, analyzing those networks of pathways like sidewalks and crosswalks, and then identifying the inventory of restaurants, retailers, and service providers within the area, We were able to provide a walk score of 59 out of 100, which definitely shows that there are some assets in place and that there are individuals that walk throughout that corridor, but that score is out of 100, so there's definitely opportunity for growth there as well. Next, we start to really dig into what those recommendations are within the strategic plan that we specifically think our team at Downtown Strategies has the ability to partner with the city of Clearlake to help you implement. And as we mentioned, this strategic plan was written such that these recommendations could easily be implemented, but we know that time and resources are certainly of value and are scarce within municipal governments. And so our team at Downtown Strategies has the ability to partner to help with the immediate implementation of certain strategies. So those are the strategies that I'm going to detail in the next few slides, and I'll keep this brief. I know you guys have quite a bit of business to get to. But the first recommendation is to really identify the gateways and corridors within the downtown area that will enhance the walkability and connectivity within the community. When we first took a look at the study area of downtown Clearlake, you can see on this map that we identified 3 specific nodes along this corridor. First is the Austin Park node, which of course is right by City Hall, and which has seen quite a bit of public investment by the city and is enjoyed by a number of citizens for recreational purposes. Next is the Highlands Park node, which is definitely an area that has an immense amount of opportunity, more for what we perceive to be a passive park opportunity, followed by the Redbud Park node, which we know the city has actively been recruiting partners for that park for new development. And we think that is really an area that can focus on tourism attraction, with that area being the location where boats can let in into the lake. This provides a great opportunity. But in addition, if you notice, these 3 specific nodes from Austin Park down to Redbud Park, these areas are not completely walkable. It's a little more than a mile from one park down to the next. And those infrastructure pieces are not necessarily in place. And so that's a real goal of ours. But additionally, you can see in blue, we've outlined what we perceive to be the gateways into each of these development nodes. These areas we think are the main thoroughfares into the downtown, and we recommend treating each of these nodes a little bit differently. There's opportunity for applying infrastructure treatments, wayfinding signage, and even public art, so that when visitors or residents are entering the downtown through each of these various nodes, they receive a different experience. We know that experiential tourism is on the rise, and that millennials, whether we like it or not, are really the top consumer group in America. And so that demographic really craves experiences. And that's our goal, is to really blend that millennial group and their quest for experiences and also experiential tourism into this downtown development plan. So you can see on this next slide that our first recommendation, and one that we intend to partner with the city of Clearlake on, if given the opportunity, is to really focus on enhancing these downtown gateways that we identified each into these development nodes. These gateway enhancements would include wayfinding signage, changes to the roadbed, as you can see in this picture, designated in terms of crosswalk, asphalt staining or stamping, or public art in the roadbed. You can see here some very specific gateway signage, and even right here in this plan of implementing a complete streets perspective. So we think these are huge opportunities. Now, certainly these types of investments or these types of strategies do require investment, but we have identified opportunities for funding, and we know that Alan is terrific at identifying grant funding as well. So our goal is to partner with the city throughout the exploration of these funding resources to make sure that the design and the approach to enhancing these gateways into each of these downtown development nodes is what it needs to be to really achieve the end result that we're all hoping for. The next recommendation that we believe that we can partner with you on is a comprehensive marketing plan and wayfinding signage. You know, we know that Clearlake is a tourist destination, but we know that Clearlake is part of Lake County, which experiences tourists from all throughout the region. And so with specific branded wayfinding signage, we believe that first of all, we can partner with the city to identify what those brand marks need to be to really enhance all of the wonderful assets of Clearlake and help tell the story of the unique place that you all have, but also to translate that brand into wayfinding signage so that we can pull those visitors and tourists and residents from the commercial corridors into the downtown area strategically, and to point them along throughout the corridor. And you can see right here on this slide, this is an example of a well-designed comprehensive system, wayfinding signage system, with specific district branding for specific downtown nodes. This is something that we would like to create for you all in cooperation with Alan and his team. And that is a very comprehensive signage system that can really help elevate the downtown area. Next is the notion of historic preservation. And this might come as a little bit of a surprise to some of you, but the National Department of Interior designates historic places as those that are 50 years old or older. So we're not necessarily looking for structures or architecture that's over 100 years old, which you do see in some communities throughout California. But in Clearlake, many of the structures in the downtown area are over 50 years old, and they do have significant architectural integrity. Through placing the district on the National Register of Historic Places, it does not provide any restrictions on those properties or property owners, but it does unlock historic tax credits for those property owners that may wish to rehabilitate those structures. These historic tax credits on a federal level are equivalent to 25% of the total rehabilitation costs. And the state of California has gone through the legislative process of creating state tax credits as well. Those are still being developed, but those can be used in tandem with federal tax credits. So why is this important? Well, we know that many structures in the downtown area are in need of update. And for many property owners that we talked to while we were in your market, they identified that they have a real desire to update their buildings, but they're concerned about the cost of that rehabilitation. So going through this process of listing the district on the National Register of Historic Places, as you can see, does not provide any restrictions to what those property owners can do. It's simply a designation. But what it does do is unlock those tax credits that really make the rehabilitation process make sense from a pro forma and from a financial standpoint. Next, and nearing the end of our presentation, again, I know you guys have quite a bit of work to get to, but the next recommendation that we would like to partner with you all on through implementation are design guidelines. You all have a set of design guidelines through the Lakeshore Drive Design Guidelines document that has been developed over the last couple of years, really a little bit more than that we think is an excellent starting point. We want to value that investment that you all have made in creating those guidelines and help build on that to really refine what we think defines the downtown Clearlake area in terms of aesthetics. And through that, you can see on this slide where we've really pulled some very iconic photos of the downtown Clearlake area from the past and the present. Certainly our goal is to retain sort of that resort feel and aesthetic that Clearlake became so famous for many decades ago. And so we've created this exterior paint palette that you see over on the right-hand side of the slide that features historically appropriate exterior paint colors for the structures within the downtown Clearlake area. So this would be folded into the design guidelines. These would merely be suggestions, recommendations for those property owners that are looking to elevate the exterior appearance of their structures to make sure that all of the redevelopment that happens in the downtown Clearlake area really starts to move in the same direction and is coordinated. So that was a lot of information that we provided, and I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to visit with you. Would love to answer any questions that the council might have, and really want to identify too that the next steps are, now that we've provided our strategic plan, we'd love the opportunity to partner with Clearlake on making sure that this plan doesn't just sit on the shelf, but is truly implemented in collaboration with Alan and his staff within city government. So thank you for the opportunity to present this. And at this time, I'd love to answer any questions that any of you might have.
Councilwoman, over to
I think-
Before you jump in, could I just say, some of the folks online are having a hard time hearing, particularly the council. So when you speak, if you could just try to really speak into the mic and speak up a little bit, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, ready? Okay, Jane, again, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. So you've looked at our vision, our strategic plans, the stuff that we've already had in place, and have taken all that into consideration, because, I mean, we had a lot of community people work very hard on our vision for our Lakeshore Drive, and basically was approved through the community already. We did do some of the directional signs already we put out. The marketing committee, agrees with you on our, how everybody's going to be entering into our town and what we need to do there. We need to brighten that up. But I just want to make sure that you take all the information that we've worked hard on over the past 16 years and that I know of, and make sure that those are, something that we need to follow and implement, because that's basically the community's input.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. And yes, certainly, really our position is that the opportunity to work with you all is for us to build on what has already been created. So we have reviewed all of those plans, the Lakeshore Drive infrastructure plan, and that is actually referenced in our plan, that we identify that infrastructure and streetscape plan is exactly what it needs to be, that we encourage the city to make that investment in enhancing the streetscapes, as well as some of the plans that have been done for your parks. We've taken a look at all of those. What I presented today was just a brief snapshot of our strategic plan. But yes, all of the existing plans that have been done for your parks, for Austin Park, for Highlands Park, have been noted in the strategic plan. We're not recommending any departure from any of those, but simply building on the success that those plans have created and helping the city take it just to the next step.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
Councilman Clappy, you have a question?
Sure. Hi, thank you for the presentation. I had a quick question, or a couple of questions actually. Around the parks and the nodes, could you pull up that slide again for me? I think I just misunderstood. So if I'm looking at Red Bud Park, for example, are you indicating that old Highway 53 is the main entry corridor there?
Yes, sir, that's right. So we really believe that that is one of the gateways into the downtown area. And so that there should be specific treatment applied to that corridor, really that intersection from the highway to Lakeshore Drive. As that visitor or resident enters that area, that it should really be known to them that they are entering a downtown area.
And I guess my question would be, and I understand maybe with future development, we want to focus in this area, but why would we avoid the marketing and branding aspect to our highly successful retail section along Lakeshore, just beyond that intersection?
Yeah, so we definitely would not recommend neglecting that. But when we think about really defining the downtown boundaries, we really think about what is that maximum walkability. And so, if an individual was at the Red Bud Park area, For tourism purposes, if there is a future hotel, we know that you have baseball parks there, and that's where the boat let-in is. What's the reasonable amount of distance that they would travel to these other assets within the downtown area, Highlands Park and Austin Park? So, beyond Redbud Park, we're certainly not saying that that area is not of interest, but really from Austin Park to Redbud Park represents somewhat of a concise area that can be treated as a downtown with infrastructure, streetscapes, connectivity, and walkability. So we're certainly not recommending any departure from focusing on retail beyond the Redbud Park area, but really our perspective is that from Austin Park to Redbud really identifies that downtown core central business district area. Now that's certainly up for discussion. That doesn't mean that we can't have additional events beyond that area. And certainly our partnership with the city of Clearlake as it relates to national retail recruitment is dedicated to the entire city. So that's one of the benefits that we see of our partnership with you all is that not only are we focused on the downtown area, but also on recruiting national retail for the entire city.
Okay, and my other question pertains to data. I loved the evaluation of the different resident personas. I saw that you also did mobile tracking for tourism as well, but I didn't see personas associated with that. And is that something that just wasn't in our packet, or were you unable to really drill down as deeply as you'd like to?
From a tourism perspective, sir, is that your question?
Yeah, so you did a great job with the resident personas, right? And forgive me, I forget what you guys call them.
Yeah.
So it looks like you did similar data research around tourism using mobile data taken from the spot. I'm just wondering if you were able to pull out any learnings from the type of people that have traveled here, or just information around those folks that are out of county that are coming here.
Sure, absolutely. Yes, sir. So we didn't include it in the slide deck this evening, but you're right. Within the strategic plan, we do have a specific tourism study where we identified both Austin Park and the Spot. We looked at tourism traffic to both of those. And what we learned is that now one thing to keep in mind is that tourism data does represent a 12-month period from the date that we tracked the information, which is helpful because it does include some COVID data, if you will. A lot of folks tend to think, well, let's just look at 2019 information. We're going to pretend like 2020 didn't exist. But our perspective is this is our reality. So let's understand what COVID meant for our businesses and for our community. And then let's look forward to the future. So what we learned is that definitely at Austin Park, you guys are receiving visitors from beyond the municipal boundaries. And, there are individuals coming from further than 100 miles. And actually, Alan will remember this when we were in the area in October. And when we were there in July, actually, I think it was when we were there in July, we were at the Spot, we were having lunch, and I went down to the pier to just visit with some folks. And there was a family from New York that had come to Clearlake for the bass fishing in July. So it was really great to hear that. And that's what was articulated through our tourism study, that in certain months, specifically the summer months, that tourism activity was increased. And so we feel like there is an opportunity, and specifically through our recommendation to hone in on marketing and branding. There's a real opportunity to tell the story of Clearlake, that you guys have this amazing lake with terrific fishing and water sports, but you also have a great community with good restaurants and a great family environment with these parks. But telling the story is a real critical need. So while there is a tourism attraction and draw to the downtown area, we really feel like there's an opportunity to exponentially enhance that with a digital presence, strong marketing and branding, and then even wayfinding signage within the community so that those that are traveling on the periphery, maybe in Lakeport or Kelseyville or some of these outlying communities, that they start to see the signs for Clearlake and pointing those individuals into downtown Clearlake where some of these assets are.
So I guess my question was more around, and I found the term you used, tapestry segmentation.
Okay, sure.
Did you collect enough data on those folks out of county that you could start splitting up that tapestry?
Yes, certainly. So the tapestry segmentation data that is in the strategic plan was just concentrated to a 3-mile radius of the downtown area. That was really so that we could understand who the downtown residents are. But then beyond that, yes, our tourism studies of both the Austin Park area and the spot does include mobile data tracking so that we have the ability to look on a map, and we'd be glad to send you these specific images after the meeting that really shows kind of that heat saturation on a global map of where those individuals are coming from and in the greatest concentration. So we were able to determine that, the majority of the tourists that are visiting this area are from California and in other regions, but that certainly beyond that you guys have visitors from as far as New York and Florida and multiple states in between. But that we feel the biggest opportunity is to really focus on the more regional travel, specifically within the restrictions that we're experiencing with COVID-19. But yes, sir, to answer your questions, we are able to drill down into profiles of those visitors within the last year to these different locations. And we have the ability to look at additional locations beyond Austin Park and the spot if that is of interest.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Kramer, you have some questions?
Yes. Actually, part of my question was Councilman Coffey asked with regard to what the target area that you would draw from for tourism would be. Also, what target groups, and I think you kind of went into that with the tapestry analysis. You mentioned millennials. Is that the group that we should be focusing on, or are there the older, what was it, the young retireds, and what group are you thinking we should be retired or should be focusing our interest on and trying to draw people in here to tourism?
Yes, sir. Well, one of the largest takeaways that we took was that when we looked at your customized trade area, so those individuals that are actually traveling to Clearlake for, their basic goods and essentials. So not necessarily from a tourism perspective, but certainly far beyond the Clearlake municipal boundaries. What we found is that by and large, those households, the greatest characteristic that we pulled is that they are family households. They are individuals with children in the home that are looking for activities to do as a family. They're looking for safe activities. They're looking for restaurants, parks, events, and outdoor activities, which Clearlake is perfectly positioned to provide. Now, beyond that, when we look at tourists, we certainly see the greatest opportunity for destination tourism for recreation. And those are more, not necessarily millennials. Those are more of your middle-aged families or individuals that have the opportunity to travel larger distances, to fish, to come to the tournaments that you guys are hosting. So that's definitely a target segment. And while destination tourism is very important, we feel like, and that'll be something that we certainly take into consideration and plan for through the marketing and branding opportunity, should we have the opportunity. We also believe that there's an immense opportunity to provide amenities, opportunities, experiences for those residents of Lake County and just beyond. So really focusing on a regional approach. There's a lot of money being spent within your trade area, but not all of it is being spent in Clearlake. So our focus will also be, how can we identify experiences, opportunities, retailers, and events that can help recruit those individuals within the trade area to Clearlake, to the downtown area, to really spend those funds that they have to further increase the economic impact of your downtown area.
You include fine dining type restaurants in that last category?
Yes, sir, we do. But I will say that through COVID, we've seen from both a national, regional, and local level that fine dining restaurants are a little slower to expand right now. Of course, with the restrictions that are currently in place, they're having a hard time finding capital and having banks that will lend them the money needed to create these new concepts and to expand existing concepts. So what we perceive to be the immediate opportunity are those fast casual restaurants. So, think like a pizza shop, an ice cream shop, a taco bar, places where people can call it in, pick it up, have a walk-up window, like the great barbecue restaurant that you guys have on Lakeshore Drive, where you can walk up to the window and grab that food and eat it outdoors. And because you guys have the picturesque lake, that provides a unique opportunity for people to really ease into that consumer confidence that is lacking a little bit right now because of COVID, but still patronize these businesses downtown while enjoying the lake and experiencing that outdoor dining.
You anticipate that that's going to be the case a year from now or 2 or 3 years from now? Which
That's a
is
great,
also part of your projection.
yes, sir. That's a great question. And we really believe that these fine dining restaurants are going to be somewhat at a halt for at least the next 2 years. We think not that they don't have the desire or the entrepreneurial spirit, but really the capital is what is lacking the most. We are certainly watching the American Rescue Plan federal relief bill that's being debated in Congress today. And we know that if that bill is passed, as it has been presented in the Senate today, that there will be significant funding for restaurants, for existing restaurants. But we do know that with restrictions going up and down, really until the vaccine is fully distributed and these mask mandates and capacity restrictions are totally lifted, it's going to be difficult for fine dining restaurants to be able to have the table turnover that is necessary for their pro forma to really be successful. So our estimates are that it's going to be about 2 years before we start to see those restaurants grow. But these fast casual restaurants have been growing at an truly exponential rate, much more than even 2019 and before. So there is a lot of opportunity for new business and business growth, but these white tablecloth restaurants that so many of us love and really want in a downtown area are on the horizon, but we're going to have to just be a little patient.
You mentioned at the Redwood site, you mentioned the ball fields down there. I don't know if you're aware, but those are going to be moving.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then just an observation here. Are you proposing a turnabout on Lakeshore and Old Highway 53?
No, we're not. We're not. We definitely think that the thoroughfares that are in place are sufficient, but coming into these specific areas, these gateways that lead into the downtown, what we are recommending is that there be a specific treatment that notifies the resident or the visitor that they have arrived at a place that is unique and different from the commercial corridors or the residential areas that they've previously been traveling through.
Last, in reading through this, I mentioned they're found in several places reference to flash drives. Perhaps I missed that memo, but is there a flash drive available that has
There is,
supporting
yeah.
data for this?
There is. So we actually presented the strategic plan to Alan. I guess, Alan, it was last week or maybe the week before. And we've gone back and forth with some edits. We really want this to be a very collaborative process. So once the strategic plan is finalized, then we will snail mail hard copies of the plan plus a flash drive. And that flash drive has additional resources to assist with the successful implementation of some of these strategies.
Okay.
But no, we have
Well,
not submitted that just yet.
Okay. Well, thank you. You've done just a phenomenal report that you put together, and you got a ton of information in it, which it will take me another 2 weeks to completely go through. But thank you for your work so far.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Mayor, any question? I just have one comment. Very thorough study, and I'm looking forward to having some of these things implemented. Next question, do we have any public comment on this item?
I've not received any emails on this item and no one in the Zoom has their hand raised, Mr. Mayor.
We have no more questions for Jen. I'll close the public hearing and any more additional council comments? If not, can I have a motion to?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to motion to approve Clearlake's downtown strategy vision and authorize the city manager to execute a contract with downtown strategy since it's with the downtown implementation proposal.
Second, Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilwoman Overton and a second by Vice Mayor Purduck. Or together with, let's give it to Councilman Crane.
Third.
We have two seconds. So that's a third. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 7.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you,
Thank you
Jen.
very much, Jen. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you all very much. We really appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to the partnership.
We're looking forward to working with you guys.
Thank you.
All right, go to item number 7, consideration of a facility use agreement with Adventist Health Clearlake for the use of the city's shower trailer.
Mr. Mayor, as an employee of Adventist Health, I think I should recuse myself at this time.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please, it's your presentation.
Honorable Mayor and council members, Adventist Health Clearlake, through a community collaboration called Pop-Up Care Shower Project, has proposed an agreement with the city to provide services for those experiencing homelessness using the city's recently completed shower trailer at the Senior Community Center 2 days a week on Wednesdays and Thursdays for approximately 6 hours a day from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Services provided by the group would also include a meal and coordination of resources for those in need. City staff would be assigned as a liaison, but Adventist Health Clearlake would manage the project and the shower trailer usage. The initial term of the agreement is for 1 year with the option of annual renewal. The agreement may be suspended or terminated if the Senior Community Center is needed for disaster response or other conflicting events which may arise. At this time, staff is recommending waiving any rental fee or security deposit for the use of the trailer. Marilyn Wakefield with Adventist Health is on the Zoom and may be able to answer specific questions surrounding the pop-up care shower project you may have. And staff recommends approving the agreement with Adventist Health Clearlake and authorize the city manager to sign. That's my report.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for our city clerk? No questions? Do we have anybody from the public with questions about this item?
I think Ms. Wakefield may want to make some comments.
Okay,
Marilyn, do you want to
can you hear
talk
me?
about this? Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. I think this would be a really great partnership between the city and Adventist Health and bringing a much needed service to those people who are experiencing homelessness, as well as not just the showers, but we offer case management and assist with referral to resources like Hope Center and other locations that can house people, but also helping people to recover IDs and that sort of thing.
Do we have any questions for, go ahead, Councilwoman Overton.
Hi, Marilyn, this is Joyce.
Yes.
I just want to make sure, because, during these times, the 9:30 to 2:30 is also when we have our seniors there at the community doing the meal program. How do you anticipate combining the people that come up to use the shower trailer from coming into the senior center during that time. Have you put a plan together yet?
Yes, we have just been notified that we'll be able to hire a second person to be with the shower trailer with Anna Arthur. And we will be setting up chairs that are socially distanced on the opposite the side from the senior center, and directing people to wait there if they're going to use the shower. And we're also going to limit the number of people who can be in line waiting to 6, because that would give us a whole nother, what do you call it? 4 people to refill after everybody has exited the 4 showers. And then we can let other people move in as the space allows. But we have thought about it, and we will be directing people to be on the opposite side of the shower trailer from the senior center.
I'd really like, before we actually open it up, I would really appreciate if we could meet, just kind of go over things so that I can kind of direct my staff also of what's going to be
Absolutely.
happening there. Thank
Sure.
you, I appreciate it.
Okay, do we have any more questions?
Yes,
Councilman Kramer.
this thing right here, let me give you one question.
Throw it out there like 30 seconds.
Hi, Marilyn, this is Russ Kramer. Just for your information, we do have electricity at outlets at the trailer, and we'll have communications ability there as well. I know that you do some paperwork while your folks are going through the showers. So you can do that right out there. You won't have a need to have to run anything from the senior center or the community center building itself.
That's
And
great.
I'd also be, I think I know more about that shower trailer than anybody else here in the room. So I'd be glad to meet with you as well.
Okay, I will put Anna in contact with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Overton, that's a different question.
I'm back, sorry.
Copy, any comments? I don't have any comments. I think it's a great idea. So I guess we'll close did we get any public comments on this item?
I have not received any emails on this item or town hall postings, and there are no hands raised in the Zoom room, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I will close the public hearing. Any additional questions? If not, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve the agreement and authorize the city manager to sign.
Okay, do we have a second?
And then it's all.
Yeah, we have a motion by Councilwoman Overton and a second by Councilman Claffey. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 8.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.
All right, we go to item number 8. Measure V, committee discussion regarding responsibilities. With our Public Works Director will take this. Dale, please proceed.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. First, I want to compliment you and the citizens of Clearlake on having the foresight and the willpower to establish the Measure V fund. As a public works director for many years and someone responsible for roads in a number of cities, this is something that is largely lacking in most cities, in every city that I've worked in until here. So it's a pleasure to be here, where the citizens have said, we want to have good streets and we're willing to pay to have good streets. So I congratulate you on making that happen. Both council past councils and the citizens themselves. I think it's a job well done. So the Clearlake voters voted in 2016 for Measure B, which is a 1 cent sales and use tax. And that tax was established so that money could be generated for roads. There's quite a lengthy list of things that have to do with roads that this money can be spent on. It's a pretty comprehensive list, actually. And so, but part of the proposal that went to the citizens was that there would be a committee formed that would have oversight over the expenditure of the funds and ensure the citizens that the funds were expended correctly, which is appropriate in my mind, that committee should exist. According to the ordinance, the committee's sole purpose was to ensure that those funds were expended correctly, but the council was given the option to give them additional assignments. Now, when I received this assignment to present this material to you, I went back and I looked through council meetings since this committee was organized, and I could find no instance in any council meeting where direction was given to the committee to do any additional assignments. So it's possible that individual council members may have talked to members of the committee and asked them to do something, but the council as a whole never gave any direction to the committee. In the time since the committee was formed, they've only had 2 meetings, and both of those happened last year, one in July. We had the meeting in July because we thought at that point we would be able to look at the budget and give them a copy of the expenditures from the previous year and say, you know, here's the expenditures. You can look at it and make sure we've done things correctly. But as it turned out, we didn't have a final budget because the audit hadn't been done. And the audit wasn't going to be done until the end of September, so we rescheduled a meeting for October. And we met in October and we gave all that information to the committee members. They took that information, and we did some other things in those meetings as well. We presented them with a lot of other information about how the projects went, what projects we had coming in the next year and years after that. We gave them each a copy of our 5-year plan, et cetera. So we gave them actually quite a bit of information. We gave them the budget information so they could look at that and they could formulate a presentation to the council so that they could assure the council that funds had been expended appropriately. That was done in January. I don't know if any of you remember that, but that was done on January 21st, and you approved their recommendation or their assertion that the funds had indeed been expended appropriately. So I guess the question tonight is are there other assignments that you as a council would like to have this committee perform as committee members? And the discussion points are what duties would you have them perform? And then the questions that kind of go with that have to be asked about any of those new assignments are how would the new assignment improve the workflow, getting the work done? How would the new assignment improve the outcome? And how would the new assignment improve the bottom line? So with that, I could probably talk, but there's been a lot of that already tonight, and there's more to come. So I'm going to stop and allow you to ask me any questions you have. As I said, I've been doing this a long time and have had a lot of experience in a number of settings in a number of cities. And so I'd be glad to entertain any questions you have this time.
Okay, Councilman Kramer.
Yes, Director Goodman, thank you for that presentation. Yeah, my thought on an oversight committee is that it just oversees expenditures that have been made. But I do notice in reading this last document, the last page, last paragraph, City of Clear Lake has prepared a proposed road maintenance and improvement transactions and use tax expenditure plan for the next 20 years, beginning in 2016, going through 2036. The expenditure plan will be annually reviewed by the Oversight Committee, and updates to the plan, to the expenditure plan, will be recommended by the Oversight Committee with input from Public Works and the city engineer to the city council, who will make the final annual allocations. I really wasn't aware of that before, but in reading this over, I saw that. Is that, what is your feeling on that part of it? Is that, do you consider that an additional assignment from what you thought the assignment was for the
No.
Oversight Committee?
I mean, I have read through this, through the document. I was aware of that. And so I don't consider that an additional assignment. That's part of what their duties have been all along.
Okay, not, yeah, so it isn't just looking at what was spent and make sure it was spent properly, but also looking at the plan or any update on the plan that may be presented for the upcoming years.
Okay,
Is that a fair statement of
Sure.
what it's saying? I'm not suggesting it or not suggesting, I'm just asking if that's,
yes,
Part of
that
it.
seems a fair statement.
okay.
Councilman Overton?
I just got some, maybe remarks, suggestions, I'm not sure. Sorry. Because one of the things with the committee has been I think they were hoping that they would, get a presentation of what's going to be spent with the budget so that they can make sure everything's being appropriated right before I think it was spent. And I'm not so sure that, is there a reason why we can't do that? Because we approved that stuff anyway. Is there a
I
reason
mean,
why they-
every meeting that we've had, we've reviewed the 5-year plan
Okay.
with them. So, I mean,
That's pretty much a standard thing you've been doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
So,
ever since the council adopted the 5-year plan, I mean, they've seen it. We've talked about it. So.
And so I guess, maybe we just need to look.
I mean, you talk about the plan, I mean, every, what is it, Mr. Goodman, every 3 years or 5 years, we have a new pavement management plan put together. The most recent one was in 2018. I mean, and what Mr. Goodman and our city engineer staff do is they look at the management plan, recommendations in there, and essentially that's how the list of projects in the 5-year plan were developed. I mean, there was an attempt to kind of spread those around the city a little bit and not just do everything. I mean, you could spend all the money in the avenues every year or whatever, but those projects have been spread around. But I mean, there's nothing that says that that's how we have to do it. It just seemed the most logical and sort of statistic-based way to approach the thing. But if, you wanted the Measure V committee to make those recommendations to you every year or whatever, I mean, you could do it different ways, but I just want to make sure you understand how it's been approached up to this point. And then that was brought to the council, in 2018 and adopted the 5-year plan. And then we've been working from that. But I mean, even though from our understanding of the ordinance, we didn't view that as the primary aspect of the committee. It was once the expenditures were made, were they appropriate? But obviously it makes sense for them to have a kind of an understanding what the plan is ahead of time and all that. So yeah, that's been part of the thing every time.
I guess my thing is, I mean, in my mind is I'm thinking they should be looking at what we want to spend ahead of time to make sure that it's appropriate. So there's not a problem down the line. Once the money's spent, what are you going to do? The money's spent. So to me, it should be presented to them ahead of time, not after the fact. That's just my opinion. So,
well, I mean, on that thing, the only thing I want to raise is, I mean, you can do that. It's just, that's basically authority of the council that you're giving up to another group, because that's your decision on how to spend those funds. If you want to do that, you
no, I'm
certainly
not
can.
saying that we can't set the forth, but before the projects go even to the council, well, I mean, even after the council, whichever, but that they understand this has been approved and that. So, because I think some of the things that's been questioned, was, how the money got spent before they even looked at it. And I'm just saying what they said. So I'm just bringing it to light. And I think they might have a point. How are they going to oversee something that they haven't really been shown everything on? So not everybody sees the council meetings and stuff, so it's just a fact. So, so I'm just wondering is there a way that we can make them feel, they're sitting on a committee, they want to feel important also. They want to feel like they're giving, their all to the city. So is there a way that we can, present this and let them understand how the money's going to be spent? And then, of course, they'll be overseeing it at the end. It's just a presentation to them. I mean, we are the ones that are going to accept the proposals, but they're the ones that are supposed to be overseeing and making sure that the money's spent right. So is there a way they can have that budget on hand to kind of, have it ahead of time before it's all spent? They can see what's going to be spent. And if they have any questions, then they can question it then.
Well, I mean, I think so. I mean, I would argue that that happens every time. I think to me, it's a little bit of a different issue than that, at least for some of the past members of the committee. It's more an interest in potentially directing operations of the department rather than oversight of the expenditures.
Making decisions on where they think it should be spent. Is that what you think? More as they think it should be done. So, okay. All right. I'm just trying to get everything kind of out there so that we can kind of discuss it. So, all right. I think I got what you're saying. So, thank you.
Vice Mayor Burdock, do you have any questions?
No, just a comment. Thank you, thank you, Dale, for that report. I think it was spot on. I just wanted to give, again, I like to give background. And Dowd Associates was the one who helped us do that. The Area Planning Council provided us money to do a survey of our voter base to see what they wanted within that proposal or the proposition, Measure B. And it was because of that polling that oversight was recommended. People did not want to see special attention paid to the streets that maybe a council member lives on or something like that, or a friend getting the work that maybe someone else didn't get a chance to bid on. Just the myriad of things, and when people are alleging corruption. So I thought that was a very good thing, and it was something that, of course, was included in the ordinance. I also spoke with a couple of members that were on the Measure B committee, and they felt that they should have had, and I reminded them they did not, decision-making over who should get bids and whether it should be city staff that's doing it or we actually go out to bid to do the work. And I tried to remind them that that was well over and beyond the scope of their responsibilities, and that they were simply oversight to make sure that the dollars are being spent appropriately for residential streets per the ordinance. So thank you very much. I look forward to moving this forward and getting our new Measure B committee appointed.
Councilman Clark, do you have any? Yes, you do.
Measure B should really be the gold standard, and we're so close. We really are. I think the work that you are all doing, the number of roads, the number of miles you've laid has really been exceptional. I think the only place we're really missing right now is a really solid oversight committee, right? And there's a lot of reasons why that's not the case. I do believe, and it seems like there is some agreement here, but I would absolutely suggest that every road project that we do at least passes in front of the eyes of this committee. I mean, we're spending Measure B money on staff, correct? Right. We're spending Measure B money on equipment. I absolutely don't want them micromanaging them, but I do think as an advisory body to the council, they can serve a purpose. And I also think they're the eyes and ears of our residents, and to really push this over the finish line and make it an exceptional program. I think making sure that if someone were to go and watch that last Measure B committee on YouTube, I really saw folks who didn't feel like they had information and folks who didn't feel like they were engaged. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not putting that on the city, and I'm not putting that entirely on the advisory board or the committee either. So both have to come together. And I think I would love to hear a recommendation from the city on how we can get them more involved in understanding a project before it goes out to bid potentially, so that they can come to us rather than retroactively, proactively say, all right, this project looks good, but here are some red flags that you might want to bring up, right? Or if it's something that is incredibly corrupt, which I do not expect that at all, because as I said, you guys are doing an incredible job. They need to have visibility on that beforehand. At least that's my opinion. So I would really suggest that the city look at a way to get that committee involved both at the beginning of a project and at the end of a project, so that they can see the full scope. And even if it doesn't bring a ton of value to the project, looking at your discussion point, I think you kind of missed the part around transparency, right? Like we can, this suggestion is not going to improve the process for you guys. It's probably going to be a bit of a pain for you guys, but I think it's important to do in order to continue to build that trust, but then also verify, right? Like we have a lot of trust from you guys, and that's why all these projects are moving through at a fast pace, but we still need to verify, and the residents still need to verify. So that would be the one main suggestion that I would like to see. And I'm open to where that lands in the planning process. And I'd be open to a suggestion for that, but I do think that we need to bracket them with information so that they feel engaged and they can be an advocate for the great work you're doing as well, not only an oversight body. So thank you.
I don't really have any comments. Do we have any from the public that wants to chime in on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I have not received any emails on this item, but we do have two members of the public on the Zoom who wish to speak, and the first is Cheryl Allman.
Thank you. Cheryl, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. As a member of the Oversight Committee, I think that we actually did, the two of us that are left, have a chance to review all the projects as they were being planned several years ago and understand the scope of those plans. I think we have an idea of cost, and we were able to look at that very effectively. I felt that the information given to us on our jobs as well as the plan could be more effectively communicated to new members. We did go through that, and staff responded very effectively and quickly after our last meetings to provide that. But as we have new members coming in, I think that would be helpful. The other thing is that several of the new members wanted to get into micromanaging, and I do not see that as our job. We actually have wonderful staff from Allen to engineering to construction. I don't see that they have done a poor job, and anybody interested can keep track of what's going on at the council meetings, and normally we get updated information there. So I think that the staff is trying to do an effective job. I think that maybe a little bit more clarity on what we are to do and the information around Measure V we can actually see and are expected to read before we give comments to city council members. So thank you. And I thank the city for the excellent job that they are doing and the patience they had with many members that wanted to take it a step beyond our obligations and our role. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next person that on Zoom.
The next person is Bruno Sabatier.
Please proceed, Bruno.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. I think so far what has been presented to the committee has been almost more than what is absolutely necessary. I think that the staff has been kind to ask us our opinions on future projects and things like that. So I think that we are, exactly as some of the council members have stated already, we're an oversight committee. We're not supposed to micromanage what kind of resurfacing is supposed to happen on which street, what the thickness of the pavement should be. I think that's getting too much in the nitty gritty. That is staff's job. And if we want to know what's happening before it happens, then we, just like Cheryl just said earlier, we should be paying attention to the council members, to the council meetings and seeing what's really happening. I will say that our first meeting that we had last year, was not the best meeting. And that was just, we need to have it in October, which is when we had our second meeting, because then we can really see a full 4 quarters worth of stats. And I think that we learned from that moment that that was not the right timing. And so I think if we have all meetings like it was in October, where we have everything laid out in front of us, this is what we did, this is what we spent money on, this is what it was for, and this is what we plan on doing next year, I think it's great. I think the detail that I think is important is the miles of roads that were done, or feet, linear feet of roads, and same thing, miles or linear feet of grading, just because those were the 2 promises made to the people. If we want to know what's going to happen before it happens, I know I've never seen the city do this, but I've seen the county do this, is maybe before something is put out for an RFP, it goes to the city council, because that is where it might need to go, or that's where it should go. You are the one holding the purse strings. You are the ones that can make the changes to it before it happens, not the oversight committee. But again, that suggestion would also potentially take more time away from the process of getting the bids in, which we all know is a tight time limit, or else the bids may not be in the right amounts, and you have denied bids in the past because they were too high. But overall, I think that the oversight committee is just that. It's oversight. As long as we're seeing money being spent on the roads, then we should be giving it the thumbs up. And if we have any further questions about anything more detail oriented, we can go back to the city council members and ask those questions. And if they feel they need to ask those questions of staff, then that's their job, not ours. We should not be getting into the weeds. And overall, again, same as everyone else is saying, I think Measure V has been an absolute success. I know that it's slow for some people who have not seen their roads being done, but overall, it is the most image changing, the most the biggest catalyst for change that right now is moving the city of Clearlake forward. And I think it's great.
Thank you, Bruno. Councilman Kramer, you have some
If
additional questions?
you're closing public, I'll go into discussion.
Oh, yeah, do we have any more public comment? Madam Clerk?
There are no further hands raised on the Zoom.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional council comments?
Yeah, no. Thank you to both Cheryl and Bruno for your comments. I agree with you completely. I think there's a major danger of micromanaging if we get into too much of the questioning the plans up front. I think the oversight committee's purpose, as I understand oversight committees, and I'm on one, is to look at what has been done and be sure that it has been done under the specific instructions of what the measure calls for. In other words, is the money being spent on roads? Is it being spent on sidewalks and not the park or something else? That's the job of the oversight committee. Like I said, I was a little surprised at this reviewing the plans up front. I'm okay with that, I guess. I think it's, as it was explained by City Manager Flora, they do that every year, so I'm good with that as well. I don't think we need to add a lot more detail to what they do. That's all I have.
Okay. Any other? Councilman Clark, please.
I don't know why we're afraid of that conversation. I get that there's a micromanagement element, and it just seems like we have to put a framework in place where they're getting information. There's a conversation among people that we've appointed to be subject matter experts to some degree. There's a conversation that's had, and then they make a recommendation to us. I don't see why we should be fearful of that. I understand it's a little extra work, but I think the trade-off is more transparency and better information being shared to the community.
Yeah. Anybody else on the council? I have Councilman Overton. Go ahead.
Okay, as I was saying in the beginning, if they're presented with, I'd rather than be presented with what we're going to be doing. I'm not saying that they're going to change that. They see the funding. They should know ahead of time. In my mind, as an oversight committee, I would want to know ahead of time that the money is being used appropriately, before it's used, and if they have questions, then they can bring the questions back to our city manager and he can look into it to make sure it's all right. So I agree. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I wanted it to be presented to them beforehand. I don't think it's that much extra work because you're presenting it to us anyway. So why can't they go ahead and look at it ahead of time before it comes to council? You know, I mean, I don't understand why we can't do that. What, how much more time would it really be?
Well, I
City
guess,
manager, please.
yeah, I'd like to have some clarification. I mean, we've talked about the committee looking at it beforehand. I mean, I appreciate, in particular, Councilmember Claffey's concern and comments about, you know, we really need to be thinking about making sure that to the maximum extent possible, the community understands the value that they're getting from this investment. And, you know, 2036 or whatever will be here before we know it. And we need to be prepared to hopefully sell this again, because, you know, there's going to be a big change in what the city can invest in if that money goes away. But I think maybe I should step back a little bit, because we didn't really specify this. Our hope was that we have a good discussion, we get a consensus of the majority of the council tonight to say, this is what we want the committee to do. And then what I would like is, based on that direction, we will prepare a resolution that says, this is what we want the committee to do, and this is when we want them to do it. And we'll bring it back at the next meeting and have you adopt it. So we have that record, because I mean, that's been one of the frustrations for staff, is it seems like we have the conversation every time of like, we can't spend money on sidewalks. Well, actually we can spend money on sidewalks. We just normally don't, but you know, so we want to try to narrow that focus so that the meetings can be productive. The committee can feel like that they're getting the information they want. So, but when we talk about reviewing the projects before they're done, there's a big difference in my mind in going over the list of next year's projects or even the next 5 years projects and saying, look, we're going to do Mullen Avenue, and we're going to do 2-inch overlay, and like, here's what the expected cost is going to be. It's going to cost us $450,000. Okay. The concern, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I feel like that's what we're doing. There may be some other ways that we can better provide that information to the committee and have, you know, I don't have a problem having a robust conversation about it. The concern I have is we hire our consultant, or we have our city engineer draw up the plans, and then we bring those plans to the committee and they look at them. We have a committee member say, well, why in the heck don't you put 2 more inches of asphalt over here? Why are you only grinding 8 inches here? I mean, I don't think that's a productive use of the committee, and I would be very concerned about that type of approach. So, but I think hopefully we can get some consensus from the council on exactly what you want that interaction to look like and what level of detail. I mean, if there's more detail you want us to provide, that's fine. I would be concerned about, here's the engineered drawings, let's review them and go through them and mark them up.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We don't want them to be, you know, micromanaging it, but I think I'm looking more at, not necessarily showing on the maps and all that stuff, showing the expenses that are going to be spent out of Measure B, but portion's going to be spent. I'm looking more at the financial part. I'm sorry, maybe I can clarify that. More the financial part, where they just get a report that says, here's where the money is coming from, this is how much is being used for Measure B, and this is what Measure B money is going to be used for, because that's what they're overseeing. They're not overseeing the whole project. They're just overseeing the portion of Measure B that's being used for that project. I don't want them coming in and telling you that, you know, unless you're using Measure B for something that our ordinance says you can't, it should be the only time that they tell you it needs to be changed. So that's kind of what I was looking at. For them to see where the money is going to be spent before the project starts, and then after the project, they can see that it got spent appropriately. So, I mean, that's just my thought, but you know, if you got something different, and you may be doing that, I don't know. So,
Councilman Kramer, you have some additional comments?
I think.
Yeah,
they might be answering that.
Councilman Overton said is pretty much, I think, what City Manager Flora just said. What I don't, as far as going further than that, and micromanaging, would be the questioning whether it's 2 inches of asphalt or 4 inches of asphalt. That's where I think you're getting further, to use Supervisor Sabatier's comments, too far down in the weeds. Expended this last comment, or this last sentence on this last page pretty well lays out what I think would be appropriate for the committee to do. Expenditure plan will be annually reviewed by the oversight committee, and updates to the expenditure plan will be recommended by the oversight committee if appropriate, with input from Public Works and the city engineer to the city council, who will make the final annual allocations. We don't want to get down into the kind of fine detail. That's not our spot. That's not our place. We do want to make sure that those funds are spent appropriately at the end of the project, when they review them and look at, okay, make sure that they are spent for what they were supposed to be spent for. That's the oversight committee's purpose. And to go any further, I agree with you.
Vice Mayor Purdue, some additional comment.
Only that I would recommend that we proceed with the ordinance as it's been. I think the most impressive evidence that I heard tonight was from our two members who sit on the committee. They felt fully engaged, and they were aware of what their responsibilities were for each of those two members. I do agree with, with one of the comments that our new members should be trained, that it should be explained to them what their purpose and responsibilities are. And I know that our staff will do that. So we can move forward. But I'm troubled by the fact that our previous oversight members wanted to get into the nitty gritties and the micromanaging, because that was not at all the intent of that ordinance. And so I recommend we move forward with this.
Do you have directions of?
Well,
feel like
sort
you have
of.
directions?
Dale may have a thing. There is one question I want to ask, though. I mean, and I think you kind of talked about reviewing this stuff that happened the year prior and looking forward to the year coming up, right? And going over those projects. I mean, that's no problem. We have the plan out there several years, and we're planning on, before our next budget cycle, having the council have a workshop and update that to add a few more years. So, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I mean, I think that the timing of like the October meeting that we've talked about works well for both of those things. I mean, but I want to make sure that the council agrees with that. I mean, because in October, we can look back and although our audit isn't always done, we essentially have the final year's numbers closed out, and we can look and say, okay, and they can say, well, here's what you spent on salaries, and here's what you spent on actual asphalt, and we can go through those projects, right? And then we also have the projects that the council has approved in the next fiscal year's budget at that point for the following season, which, if we're doing our job correctly and everyone's staying engaged, shouldn't be a surprise to them, because we've already reviewed the 5-year plan, so they should know years out, right? But I just want to confirm that there's consensus of the council that we should be able to handle what you want us to do at that one meeting, or do you think that there's a need for a second meeting at a different point?
Sounds like,
If you're covering it all in one meeting.
I don't think one meeting is enough, that you can do both. Both look at and review last year's and kind of look at ahead in next year's project, and how that's divided up by staff, equipment, and et cetera.
You're saying you don't think that's possible?
Yeah, no, I think it is possible. One meeting, isn't it?
Okay.
Is that everybody's?
It is.
It is.
I mean, I feel like if you're doing everything that you're saying you're doing, and that it's all going to be presented, there's no reason for them to meet another time, is there? I mean, I don't see another reason to meet. Because you're giving them what we have spent. You're already presenting what's going to be coming the next year. What is there a reason for the next meeting? What did you guys do in the next meeting?
No, I'm not suggesting we have a second meeting. I'm just wanting to, I think it can be done, and I think to some extent we have done it. I just want to confirm that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I think one meeting
Yeah.
needs to be.
One meeting's good.
Yes. One meeting.
David, you okay with that?
No,
No?
but we have consensus, so.
Just one final comment. I think that it's inappropriate. We have a very technical, capable staff that we get down into details of how much asphalt. And I mean, that's not appropriate for, I'll let the experts deal with that part.
No micromanaging, in other words. Let them know that.
You feel
We
better
should
now?
let our appointees know that they're not there to micromanage. That's our job actually to tell them.
I did.
Okay, so you have enough direction now?
I think so.
Dale?
Okay, Dale.
Thanks, Dale.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks, Dale. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Dale.
All right, we go to item number 9. City Clerk Melissa, can you pick this item?
Honorable Mayor and council members, at the December 3rd council meeting, 3 council members began new terms, leaving 3 vacancies on the Measure B Oversight Committee. Vice Mayor Purdock and council members Overton and Claffey should appoint a member each by resolution. Staff advertised for the open committee seat and received 1 application from Jim Scholes. Additionally, Mayor Slutin should appoint a chairperson from the committee to serve as such for the remainder of his or her term. And I believe Mr. Scholes is available via Zoom. I'm not 100% sure because I don't see his name on the Zoom. Perhaps he can raise his hand if he would like to answer questions. At this time, staff recommends that Vice Mayor Purdock, Councilmember Overton, and Councilmember Claffey appoint 3 members to the committee, 1 member per council member, and adopt resolution number 2021-13 by motion declaring the names of the appointees in the motion. Additionally, a separate motion to ratify the mayor's appointment of a chair with a voice vote. That is my report.
The Councilmember Overton, which person are you appointing?
Yes, Jim Schultz is an appoint for my position.
Councilman Claffey,
I'd like to appoint Ray Silva from my.
To who?
Ray Silva.
Vice Mayor Purdock,
I would like to recommend and appoint Conrad Colbrand, and I'd also like to recommend him as chair.
okay. Do we have anybody from the public? Wants to comment on this? Madam Clerk?
I don't see any hands raised in Zoom. And I have not received any emails or town hall comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any additional comments? Councilman Kramer?
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, please do so.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, resolution number 2021-13, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Clearlake appointing 3 members of the Measure B Committee Oversight Committee. Those members being Conrad Colbrand, as recommended by Vice Mayor Purdock, Ray Silva, as being recommended by Councilmember Claffey, and Jim Schultz, as being recommended by Councilmember Overton.
I'll second that.
Here we have a motion by Councilman Kramer and a second by Councilman Overton. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passed, and I appoint Conrad Colbrand as the chair.
Do you need a motion for the ratification also of the,
Okay.
that's okay.
Can I have a motion to appoint Conrad Colbrand as chair?
So moved.
Second.
Here we have a motion by Vice Mayor Purdock and a second by Councilman Kramer. All in favor?
Aye.
I offer the ratification of Cheryl Allman, appointed by Councilmember Kramer, and Bruno Sabatier, that was appointed by our Mayor Slutin.
Do we need to vote on that?
No.
I'll second.
No, we don't need to. There's
They're already members.
there's our terms. Okay. Item number 10. Thank you all for volunteering for this exciting job.
You're so well paid.
That too. Item 10, discussion regarding abandoned vehicles, approving of the sole source purchase of K-Rail concrete barrier from Eiffel Trading and adopting the 9th Amendment for the fiscal 2020 to 2021 budget. Andrew White, Chief of Police. Your item.
Good evening. Okay, good. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and members of the public. I come before you tonight at your request to provide somewhat of an update and informational session regarding the state of abandoned vehicles within the city and our approaches, a brief overview of the regulations, and then several purchase requests. So by way of background, we have several different municipal codes that have been passed over a number of years, and some have been updated that address vehicle being abandoned and or overparked in the city. So I'll go through these more briefly. But CMC 8-6.3 prohibits keeping a vehicle on a city street more than 72 hours without moving. This is a common prohibition that exists in incorporated cities to avoid using the streets as long-term storage for vehicles. If a vehicle is cited for that section, it's a parking citation, the penalty is $145. CMC 10-1.6J and Q have to do with the presence of inoperable vehicles that constitute blight, as well as abandoned, dismantled, wrecked, and inoperable vehicles, unless they're stored inside of a building in a lawful manner, or when they're parked in connection with lawfully conducted business. 10-6 and what follows also prohibits the presence of abandoned, wrecked, dismantled, and operative vehicles on public or private property. This is one of the more recently amended sections that we came to you and added information regarding the public property section. There are some exceptions. A vehicle that's completely enclosed within a building in a lawful manner where it's not visible from the street, typically like a garage or similar. A vehicle or parts that are in connection with some sort of a lawfully operated business, or a vehicle or parts thereof that's located behind a legally permitted solid fence in a lawful manner where it's not visible from the street or other public or private property. 10-6.3 prohibits abandoning a vehicle upon public or private property for a period in excess of 72 hours. The penalty there is $350. This was, again, a more recent amendment to the code. 10-6.4 is almost the same, but essentially it's failing to remove a vehicle when they've been ordered to abate. And I'll talk about the process and how that fits in. They both have the same penalty of $350. Then, of course, the California Vehicle Code has sections regarding abandonment of vehicles. They're listed as an infraction, and the penalty is $350. So for the compliance process, when we get a complaint or an officer on views in abandoned vehicle, they will issue, typically they'll issue a 72-hour notice, which advises the vehicle owner or person in possession that it's parked in violation of the city codes, and it provides them 72-hour notice to move the vehicle. Following that, they'll do a follow-up. At that time, they can issue a parking citation for violations of one of the aforementioned sections. And then if it seems that it's a vehicle that we intend to abate, these are like wrecks or abandoned inoperable vehicles, then we'll issue a notice of intent to abate. Typically, those have a 10-day window. There is an exception where we can do an immediate one if the vehicle is completely junked out and meets other criteria. But generally, the case is a 10-day notice of intent to abate. We also send out certain legal notices as part of that process. If we come back and the vehicle hasn't been moved, then we move on to the abatement process, which consists of towing the vehicle. We take the vehicles out to the long-term storage yard at the airport. We store them there until we make arrangements for a dismantling company to come out and they crush the cars and other vehicles on site. To give a sense of the cost of this, looking at just direct costs, so not including any staffing costs or overhead, but our costs with hiring towing companies and dismantling. The average cost for a vehicle is about $183. A boat is about $450, and an RV trailer is in the neighborhood of $750. Sometimes it can be a lot higher depending upon what's inside the vehicle. These prices, especially on the dismantling side, all really relate to the fact that we accumulate a larger quantity of vehicles, which lowers the, basically they have to mobilize and bring out all the equipment to the yard to crush them. So typically we've been seeing about 100 or so vehicles that will have crushed at a time. So you may have seen the big rig trailer that comes out, a big crushing machine takes care of that and gets the vehicles gone. We've talked numerous times, and I think I've given several updates in the last year or so regarding activity, but just to give you a reminder of what's going on. As far as tagged vehicles, you'll see that 3 years ago in 2018, we we're at 393, went down to 249 and 168. Voluntary 208 to 102 to 91, but then towing 203 to 187 to 256. Part of the decline there was in 2018, the city had to spend a bunch of AVA money, which some of you believe were involved with that process of getting that going again. So they really did like an all hands on deck effort to try to tag as many vehicles as possible, and then take them and get rid of them. Following that time, there was a drop, but stayed relatively stable. Going into 2020, as I gave an update at the last meeting, obviously we were impacted to some degree by not having money to tow the vehicles because we ran out of abatement money. But overall, during that time, we've actually, as I mentioned, updated several of the ordinances, changed some of our processes. We engaged in 2018, 2019 with a processor for our citations and that sort of thing. So really getting everything mobilized. So we are seeing and making a concerted effort to focus on this particular problem that impacts. In the last 2 years, so this current year and then last fiscal year, we have brought out the vehicle crushing crew on numerous occasions and disposed of many vehicles. And that's despite the fact that you may recall after the big surge of AVA money, then it all went away because we were on suspension for a while, the county was. But the city, and to your credit, still gave us funding to continue the abatement, even in the absence of reimbursement, which I think is, we kind of talked through all this. You know, we've seen a lot of, or at least in my opinion, I think, and supported by the facts, a lot of success in the area of code enforcement, in particular this issue. That's not to say that it's still not widespread, but I think it's important that we don't look past some of our accomplishments. The other thing is that this is but one of many problems that we face. And so while you'll see there's 393 in there, if you look at overall code enforcement activity, you may recall the update, you know, we doubled in 1 year the number of vegetation cases, and that was like a tripling from the year before. So we do have to balance this amongst all the other resource demands, but we also realize the impact on the community. So, you know, part of the thought process, as I understood it for coming to you tonight, is council members had expressed interest in talking about, you know, what kind of additional things can we do? Do we need to change ordinances and that sort of thing? So we kind of talked internally and have 3 different things to talk about. We don't have all the details in this, but we thought we'd throw it out there so you could think about it. One thing that we're looking at is that in the dealing with inoperative, abandoned vehicles and so forth, one of the frequent things that we see is somebody will have a vehicle that maybe they inherited it or the engine went down, whatever the case is, that really the issue is it's parked in their driveway, it's parked lawfully, but it's in violation of the ordinance. And their issue is either have to put it in a garage, which many houses here don't have garages, or they need to put it behind a fence. Well, in some cases, that might be literally like putting it in their backyard, which isn't probably a good idea. So the thought is maybe we could talk about amending the ordinance to allow under very certain conditions that, you know, you might be able to have a vehicle that's not currently registered and so forth in the driveway as long as it had a car cover on it. And we have to be specific that car cover isn't like a tarp or something, but a car cover. It would reduce the blight. The idea behind this is that, you know, in a perfect world, we get 100% compliance with the ordinance and nobody ever has an inoperative vehicle that's in the driveway. We also know the reality, and we know the economic realities of our community. So this might be a way to bring more people into compliance without resorting to, you know, fining them and that sort of thing. So to give them a way to kind of become legal and really address, you know, what's our goal with all this? Well, it's to reduce the blight, the visual blight that occurs. The second one is that we have found, especially more recently, that a number of property owners are willing to kind of take an economic share of the issue for their land that they own. So you own a piece of land, somebody abandons a vehicle on there or whatever else, or you've had land, it's been derelict for years, we come, you know, sending notices and so forth, that they are interested in saying, well, hey, if you can, you know, help me navigate the process, because the average person doesn't know the legal process to remove the vehicle, and it can be difficult. Currently, the fee set forth in the master fee schedule by council is $348. The reason for that fee is that it includes our direct staff costs. Our thought would be is that there's many fees that cities adopt where they lower them to be below the cost of the service, but because the benefit to the community outweighs full cost recovery. So one option maybe is to establish some exception in that fee and bring it closer to what our actual cost is of removing a vehicle, or if council so decided you could even subsidize at least partially that direct cost. According to the staff, when you talking to them, they believe that doing so would actually increase the number of vehicles that could be towed, and without us incurring 100% costs. The other part of the thought is that our staff costs are essentially sunk costs, so it's not like if we did this, and all of a sudden the revenue stream for the staff goes away. I mean, they're going to be here every working day doing their thing. The other one that's a very difficult thing for us and very, very expensive is we tend to see it seems to come in waves, but RVs that come into the city, particularly very large, bulky RVs that are missing parts, dropping sewage, all these sorts of things. That people pull into town, stay in them, and the next thing you know, you end up seeing them, burned up somewhere, abandoned. I think I've seen all the variations that happen. Is to look at, if the council so desired, we could look at see what kind of regulations we might be able to adopt in terms of parking these vehicles and that sort of thing. I will tell you that it's tricky, and the city attorney can weigh in, but there is the California Vehicle Code is controlling over what kind of ordinances that we can pass regarding this issue. But I think there are cities that have been creative regarding, these types of regulations, and understand that RVs are one of the most expensive things that we have to deal with. And they create big problems. I remember down at one of the businesses, Mendo Mill, they had one that was, parked there for a long time, got issues getting rid of it, and then the thing caught on fire one night, and they were left with a big hole there. And that's something we work collaboratively with them, but it continues to be an issue within the community. So that's kind of the first part. I want to take a brief break and allow you to answer any or ask any questions on this part and maybe discuss, and then I'd like to come back with the second part from this staff report, if that's okay.
Yeah, do you have any questions for Mike?
Is the second part dealing with abandoned vehicles that are truly abandoned? You don't know who the owner is? Such as we're finding down in the avenues.
The second part's talking about the purchase request and the strategies for utilizing some equipment and other resources.
Okay, just taking the 22nd Avenue situation.
Sure.
$55,000 based on the numbers you could just put up on the board would be the fines against this gentleman. However, has he been cited on those? Does that process happen? And the cost is approximately the same based on the numbers you gave, actually, of getting them removed. And
right. So as far as that particular case, there's been criminal charges filed, felony criminal charges. I believe there was a conviction that was entered on us directly out of a plea deal or whatnot. But my understanding is there's a year in jail. So I don't think, whatever fines we levy aren't going to remedy the situation.
so what do we do there?
So there's several different things, but one of them involved with like large scale sites like that is basically removing them and then trying to identify ways to prevent it from reoccurring. We've talked internally and think that, there might be a unique opportunity that the individual is not there, that now might be the time to go in and remove, if not all of it, maybe parts of it, with the funding that was approved at the mid-year budget update.
Is property forfeiture and
he doesn't own
possibility?
the properties that they're spread throughout. It's basically paper subdivision back there. I believe he was renting or something at one of them and basically just migrated to the whole surrounding area.
That figures.
Councilman Overton.
Yes, I really do want to help some of these people because, I get the complaints that, from people that have places here, like they have lots or whatever, they haven't built on them yet or something, that these people are dumping their vehicles on, and then, they're getting tags and they don't know, what to do. It's not their vehicles. They don't know what to do. So I definitely believe we need to do something to help them, because most of them do want to do something, they just don't know what to do. So I think this is a good thing that we really need to, if we could drop even fees. I mean, I know most of them I've talked to is willing to pay some, but $300-400 is not something that most of them can afford. So I do like the idea of trying to help them work with that type of situation. So I think this is a really good idea, because I'm sure you've gotten as many people coming to you as what I've had come to me, and we're trying to work out situations that, they really didn't have anything to do with, which is kind of sad that people want to dump on other people's properties. But that's probably more of me that I get than the other things, is that it's not my car. I didn't know it was there. Went to clean up the property, went to weed eat, and all of a sudden I have a car here and I don't know what to do. So, so is this going to help with that situation for them to get cars towed that don't belong to them?
So yeah, we think from the staff level, from their interactions with these people, that, many people are willing to partner in it, but it is that fee, when you talk $300-something, it's a lot to bite off. So, and in some cases, that is the barrier where they're like, I want to do something, but I can't do that much, and we don't really have any flexibility to adjust it on a case by case. So what ends up happening is that some of those will sit, and then it will wait until we use some of our budgeted abandoned vehicle funding, and then we end up sending invoices, which obviously go unpaid in most cases. But it delays getting the problem resolved, particularly when you have somebody that might be willing to say, hey, the direct costs involved with it, and then even if they have some extra money, maybe they could apply that towards putting up some sort of fencing or rocks or something to keep the problem from reoccurring.
Yeah, I really like the idea that there's something that we can do to help the owners, especially that it's not even their vehicles. So I like that. So, and I think you're right. I think we need to do something like this on a case-to-case basis, so that we can get these things taken care of. So especially lately, I've had a lot of them lately. It's like I'm telling them the same thing. So okay, great. Thank you.
Councilman Clark, do you have any comments?
I don't have a question. I found that interesting. If we are able to work out a deal with the property owner, but then once we pull that out, how do we rectify the problem? How do we stop another vehicle from coming in its place a year or two later? So I like that idea. I guess no comment.
Vice Mayor Furtado.
Chief, thanks for the comprehensive report and especially the innovative ideas that you and your staff have come up with to try to remedy some of the problems for those poor folks who don't have a garage, and find themselves out of compliance. I like the car cover idea. I like the proposal. Thank you very much for the work.
I have a couple of questions also. Who eventually pays the penalty? Is that the car owner or the property owner?
So by statute, both have liability in this situation. So property owner, just like property maintenance requirements, has responsibility, and then the vehicle owner, quite regularly what happens is that the vehicle has been, they call it release of liability, but it's basically been signed off to multiple different people. And so when we do issue citations and so forth, it ends up with, a string of things where it'll finally get to somebody, they'll then file an appeal, say, fine, I sold it to so-and-so, we didn't go after them, and then they say, I sold it to this person. And so it can be lengthy. We do see some recovery level in terms of people doing stuff, but it's not, obviously the reason why we're here is it's not recurring at the rate that we need to curb the problem, and it's a very expensive problem for the city, because I don't think that, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a problem where we just keep making dents at it, we really need to try to make a big impact. So that's why we're looking at alternatives.
I like all three suggestions, or these particular. I mean, we need to come up with something. What bothered me, we had a car on one of our properties that was basically dumped there, and I was trying to even hire a tow truck to tow it someplace, and they don't even do that. So why do I have to wait 10 days for that? I mean, if it's on my property, can I just do what's suggested to push it into the public right of way, and you guys take care of it? Well, that doesn't sound right either.
Yeah, that would be a violation of the code's mentioned. But the frustration is real in the conundrum that you're in. So as a property owner, you certainly have a lot more options than, say, the city as the government does. to remove things. The challenge is that, while you can move in a much less time, good luck finding a tow company that wants to take one of these derelict vehicles off your hands. Or like just this week, we were dealing with at a shopping center where hospital facilities are located and they're in those high traffic areas. There's a burned out vehicle.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult. The reason for the 10-day thing comes from state statute, because essentially on those, when we take them, unless a vehicle meets this historic definition, by statute, the vehicle has to be crushed and destroyed, so it doesn't go back on the street. So there's a due process and forfeiture piece involved. It's not like we give it notice, wait 10 days, tow the vehicle, and then you can come back and ask us about it. It's a done deal when it's done. In fact, the statute refers to the vehicle being taken directly to a dismantler, but we don't have that capability here. So we take it to the yard and then the dismantler comes to us.
Well, whatever you can do to help clean this up, please, whatever it is. And I'm all in favor of a reduced fee.
So can we just make sure we have clarity on that? So it sounds like there's a majority of the council that likes all three of the recommendations. On the second recommendation related to the fee, does the council wish to identify a fee reduction that's equal to our direct cost for towing and dismantling, or do you want a further reduction in that? My recommendation would be to go with that direct cost number, but
I would like to go with direct cost.
Okay, do we, are you still continuing with your presentation?
Yeah, there's a part two, but if you wanted to open to the public on that part.
Yeah, City Clerk Melissa, do you have any comments from the public?
There's one comment, one person with their hand raised. Go ahead, sir. Unmute.
Hello?
Hello. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure that I'm in the right segment and stuff. Is this issue 10?
Yes.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, I'm Kevin Victorian from CNA, and we want to say that we are totally in agreement with this ordinance and stuff, and that we wanted this resolution to pass. A lot of my members were trying to get online, and through Zoom technology, they couldn't get online. But we are total agreement of this, but we do have some issues. I mean, well, not issues, more or less, and stuff. We have questions that we would like to ask about this and stuff. And that is on the on item 10, page 247, I mean 237. There were some words, it was some wording that was involved in stuff, and it said that those words, there was 9 words that we were concerned about, and it said that the technology, this is under equipment and software. It says the technology may include but is not limited to. Okay, those 9 words mean a lot means a lot and stuff. Where those 9 words are not in with the purchase of the K-rails. Now, we sent out a letter to each and every one of you about not only getting the K-rails, but in using what we have already established there and stuff. And those are the boulders that were placed there about 20 years ago by Ependino when we first had this issue back in the day and stuff, where they cleaned all that out. It took them about a month or so to clean that out of there. They moved all the abandoned cars out of that area, and they put those rocks, well, they put rocks instead of boulders and stuff there. And it worked for a while until the guys with the big trucks and stuff that went back there mud bogging pushed those rocks out of the way, and they could get back there again.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I think Mr. Victorian's comments are mostly related to the second section of Chief White's presentation, so it may be most effective to go ahead and let Chief White move forward with that, and then maybe he'll address some of those questions as part of that discussion.
Hey, Kevin, could you hold on to Mr. our Chief of Police White to finish his presentation? presentation?
Yes, yes, please. Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Councilman Clapp has a question.
Yeah, in addition to the three suggested items, I would also love, and I'd love opinion on this as well, for you to explore potentially an incentive to then harden the property. So like if we're offering a tow at cost, is there a way that we can incentivize either through fencing or boulders or something along those lines so that they can get the property off the ground as long as we know that that property is then going to be secure in the future? So just a suggestion. Thank you.
All right. Okay, Chief, please.
Thank you. So continuing on, we want to talk about two areas, one involving K-Rail and the other one involving some technology. So as you may recall, back in September, we came to you and asked for approval to purchase K-Rail, quite a large quantity of it, that was deployed out in the area of the Clearlake Park called the Gobi Desert. That was all installed out there and it's proven to be very effective. There's been some challenges, obviously, with any kind of new project, but overall it's been very effective. You may recall, though, that portion that we designated a block off really was everything north of Oregon, which coincided with what we were cleaning up. We now need to move south to the southern part, which was part of the original plan. And then obviously we have other issues in the city, which we're very aware of the challenges up in the avenues. I've been up there myself. I think some council members have been up there. The city manager is aware of it. We know what's going on, and of course, the patrol officers as well, and code enforcement. So what we're asking for is that you authorize the purchase of an additional 3,000 lineal feet of K-Rail and a sole source purchase in the amount of $58,000 with up to 10% contingency. That is just in there because we may require delivery to multiple locations because of the quantity. So there may be a slight adjustment, but we also are asking for an appropriation of $7,000 for the rental of the heavy equipment. These things weigh about 8,000 pounds, so it requires special equipment to move a large quantity of them around, and we learned that through the last process. The K-Rail will be used again originally to kind of wrap up that project in terms of the blocking of the roadways. We are looking secondarily down at the property that the city leaves behind the Tractor Supply Walmart area, known as the Brody property. That is very important from a fire danger perspective. That's why the city acquired it, so we can clear it off, but we need to prevent vehicles from going back in there. We spent a lot of time and effort clearing things out, only have people go back, and then obviously have issues with the fire starting. And then of course the other areas, the area that I believe Mr. Victorian's talking about, and there's actually multiple kind of areas that we've seen in the avenues. I will also mention that K-Rail is not our only strategy for using the blockades. We've talked with Public Works about some other options. I know they mentioned the boulders. The boulders that are up there, what we've seen with some of them is that they wear down because they're kind of sandy. That's why we're looking at K-Rails. We can place it, be done with it, and move on to other stuff. But that's not to say that other methods aren't going to be used. And we're always looking for new ways. And we try stuff, some things work. We tried these big cement blocks. Blocks worked well, but they came and stole all the cabling that attached to them. So always some challenges. The second part is with the technology. So as I alluded to earlier, is that, from a long-term perspective and forecasting, we can't blockade off everything within the city. And we know that there's other things that work here kind of outside of this. Just tonight, economic development is really where it's all comes back to. But we need some other ways to help our staff out. And so what we're asking for is $20,000 allocation to acquire some various technology things and really to try some things out to try to prevent these problems. We know that in some areas there's like spot dumping. So there will be an area where all of a sudden vehicles start accumulating. And it's very difficult because oftentimes they operate at, odd hours of the night and so forth when we have limited staffing. So to try to see how can we identify the individuals that are doing this, track it, and then obviously to prevent it. I'm not sure that I understood the part about including but not limited to. What we're getting at there is that it's an evolving process, right? We don't know exactly what thing may work, but it's also not practical to keep coming back and forth to council to say, okay, we want to try this, we want to try that. We also don't want to telegraph exactly everything try. But the point being here is that we're looking for something that's cost effective, that's reasonable and that's sustainable. And it can also benefit, we have 10 square miles to worry about within the city, and we want something that can be deployed to others. Likely what might happen is that we find something that's successful, much like the K-rail, and then we come back to council to ask for, some sort of larger appropriation, and obviously we'd have to identify funding sources for that. And that's why we don't believe that, we're in a position now to just commit to one particular technology or solution. So with that, the proposed source is using increased tax revenue. There's one correction that if you do offer the resolution, if you could offer it as amended, that in the revenue adjustment section under account, it blanked out. It should say account 100-401-140, with the description being sales tax, which is consistent with the rest of the report. It just didn't carry over. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions regarding those items.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on, I just want to add just a couple additional details about the K-rail, just for the council understanding. So Chief White has asked for a sole source purchase, but if you recall, last time that we brought this forward, we did get quotes from multiple vendors. This vendor beat the other vendors with their price significantly, and then so we just went back to them again. And then the other thing I wanted to add to this is it's sometimes difficult to find this. This is a large quantity of K-rail. This stuff is it's in rough shape. It's not certified for normal road construction use. As an example, we got used stuff last time. It was $22.50 a foot. This stuff is a little rougher than that. It's $7.50 a foot. But we do have the ability to go to the loadout and select any K-rails that we don't want loaded. I mean, it's a large operation. This is 21 semi-loads of material. But we do believe it's effective based on what we did last time, and based on the particular use of most of this, we think that the sort of rougher K-rails are probably a really good economic solution for us in this case. I just wanted to add that additional detail.
All right, Councilwoman Overton.
So where do we place these at, especially on some of these, like behind their the tractor supply place? Let's say there's still a fire there. How are the fire departments going to handle that situation? So I'm just curious about if we put these up and block it, we're just gonna block down road and they're gonna go from there? Because there's probably gonna be still a fire up there.
Sure, and that's something that, with the Gobi Desert project, we work with Chief Cepeda, and we would do the same with placing any other ones. Obviously, there is, anytime you block any area, restrictions or restriction. But to your point, we do always consider that there, what type of access needs to happen. So it's something that we have to weigh out, and that's why I say too that, blockading every area isn't an option, particularly as you become more dense. But that area is, K-rail is not going to be the only option that's there. And there are, they have better means to move the stuff than like an average person would with a small truck or something.
Okay, any more questions from staff? Kevin, you have some additional comments now?
Yes. I would like to comment on the last two issues and stuff, the questions and stuff. The three issues and stuff where it was said that they wasn't sure about when I said about the technology may include but not be limited to, and I was talking about the purchase of the K-rails. Where I wanted to try to lead in with the purchase and stuff issue was that there may be some wiggle room, if we will, and stuff for things such as I couldn't really tell who was asking this question about. They were saying that the K-rails are being a little bit rough looking and stuff, and then Councilmember Overton was talking about the access and stuff if fires break out there. Both of those issues I want to address. Where I was talking about where there could be a little wiggle room and stuff is that maybe that we could get someone from the community, like local artists and stuff, because K-rails are ugly. Maybe local artists to paint things like that are native to our area and stuff, like coyotes, paint them on these K-rails, or something that has to do with the Pomo Indians or the fishing of our area and stuff to make them look pretty and stuff. That's why I wanted our community, I mean, our group and stuff was talking about the rocks because they're more natural. As far as Councilmember Overton, in our area, we do have a cattle gate that has access for the fire department to get in. So those K-rails wouldn't be a problem there and stuff. And you know, there's room, wiggle room and stuff that I want to, you know, put into this issue and stuff that may not have been thought about and stuff. I mean, we are totally for it and stuff, and we just want to just make sure we have room for other things that may have come about, because like I said, K-rails are ugly. We don't want to just be bugging Walmart and Mendo Mills for paint to volunteer, donate paint and stuff. So we have to be painting these things every year and stuff because somebody then tagged them with gang signs or racist signs or whatever and stuff. Those are the only things I wanted to add on there for as far as the group is concerned.
Thank you very much for your comments, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any additional comment from the public? Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have one more hand raised, Cheryl Allman.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Yes, like you, Mr. Slowden, I've had somebody dump a car on property too. After I managed to call the police, they said it was a neighbor. I couldn't find a neighbor. We finally, I won't say we broke into it, but I had somebody get access and we found an owner. But the car that was dumped became my problem very clearly from the city's standpoint. Once I got the car off, I fenced the property, and that was what set me up to eliminate additional people dumping on that lot. So if you have that issue, Joyce, that would be something that you might provide to somebody who asks you. So thank you, Chief White, for a wonderful presentation as always, and good luck to everybody.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Any more discussion, council, on this issue? If not, entertain a motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 2021-14, read by title only. Adoption of the 9th Amendment of the fiscal year 2021 budget resolution 2020-27, appropriating revenues for equipment rental, software, and supplies related to abandoned vehicles, and authorizing the sole source purchase of K-rail barrier from Eichels Trading.
As amended.
As amended.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Kramer and a second by Councilwoman Overton. I think we can do by voice votes here. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, move on to item number 11. Says it's by Tina, but she's not here, so I assume you will make the presentation. City Clerk.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. This item comes before your council tonight at the request of Councilmember Kramer for approval to waive the special events permit fees for the 2021 fishing tournament. As your council is aware, events have brought visitors to the community and generate revenue for local businesses. As COVID-19 restrictions ease to allow for more community events, there has been an increase in interest from event holders to hold more fishing tournaments, in addition, more parades and nonprofit community events in Clearlake. Staff is recommending an update to the current policy adopted in 2009, which only allows waiving fees for nonprofit event holders who only charge event goers to recover actual cost events. A red line copy of that policy has been placed on the dais for your review. While staff brought this to your council for consideration specifically to waive special event fees for all 2021 fishing tournaments, an updated policy would give the city manager the discretion to allow fee waivers to additional types of event holders on a case-by-case basis. The impact to the general fund is minimal, and currently special event fees are not calculated to recapture all staff time and other costs associated with special events. Additionally, to give staff time to process applications and fee waivers, staff is recommending a 30-day application processing timeline. This timeline is in line with the current 30-day special event application requirement. And that is my report. I can answer questions if you have them.
Any questions from council? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Do we have any comments from the public?
I have not received any emailed comments on this item, Mr. Mayor, and there are no hands raised in the Zoom.
Any more discussion on the council here? If not, entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the updating special event policy and authorizing the city manager to approve waiving fees for certain special events.
Second. We have a motion by Councilwoman Overton and a second by Vice Mayor Burke. All in favor of this? Aye. Okay, we'll move on to item number 12. Public hearing to consider project and authorize the application for funding through the Community Development Block Grant Mitigation and Disaster Recovery Programs. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So we've talked about this program quite a few times over the last few months, but I'll give you another little bit of an overview. So there's been a variety of programs that have been set up and funded as a result of the sulfur fire or the 2017 disaster declarations. And this particular program is a sort of creative combination of the disaster recovery program and what they call the mitigation program. And so the project that we're recommending moving forward with the application on is related to the impacts to our roadways in the sulfur fire area. So primarily Lakeshore Drive, San Joaquin, and then most of the little streets off of that all the way up to the city boundaries. As the city council is aware, we've been working on project design for this for quite a number of months. That is now complete. Back in December, we submitted a notice of interest for nearly $14 million for that project, as well as a project to improve Arrowhead Drive and Burns Valley Road from sort of that area all the way out to Olympic. And the idea being that that will, sort of be a redundant entrance and exit point to that area, which is pretty restricted based on the lake and geography and limited roads out in that area. So these are projects that, this was a little bit before my time here in the city, but after that disaster, we talked about applying for FEMA funding for that project. And one of the issues is previously these disaster recovery programs will only pay for the impact to the roadway after the disaster. As you know, while the roads in that area are much worse as a result of the disaster, they weren't great before that. And so it wasn't feasible to put together a complete project without an additional funding source. This doesn't always happen, but one of those times that, to our surprise, the folks that we had talked to, we went through an unmet needs survey with HCD. They identified that this was a real issue for a number of communities, and they actually identified additional funding and created this specific MIT program that works directly with the disaster recovery funding program so that you can fund the whole project. So for this, we actually had to submit 4 project applications for the Lakeshore Drive, the San Joaquin project, the Arrowhead and the Burns Valley project, both for disaster recovery and mitigation funds for each, totaling just under $14 million. So I don't know if you have any other questions about the program. This project or the process is a little unique from some of the other CDBG programs. We do need to, by tomorrow, submit a due diligence package and this resolution saying, that the council's authorizing this to continue to move forward. And then there's several other steps in the process where, we'll come back and this will authorize me to sign those grant agreements and so forth. But a really important piece of this is, we've worked really hard as the council has directed us to get this project ready to go out to bid. And we want to perform construction of this project this year. We're still working through some of those timelines with HCD, but we feel like the staff that we've been dealing with have been exceptional in this regard. And one of the concerns that we've been expressing to them over the last couple of months is we need to get this project out to bid no later than the end of March. We had hoped to have it out to bid in February, but with their guidelines and their process, our project wouldn't be eligible to expend those funds if we put it out to bid that early. They're actually working with us on adjusting those timelines. We believe at this point, I think there's a pretty high likelihood that they're going to adjust those so that we'll still be able to get the project out to bid in March and constructed this year. And just as a little bit of background, I think the council's aware of this. We've completely shifted our bidding strategy on these large projects over the last few years because we would put our request for bids out, say in June or July, and the prices were so high that we had to make the decision not to do the projects that year. And we found that by having the work done early, contractors are looking to fill their schedules in February, March, and sometimes into April. And the one project we had over 50% discount on the overall project cost by just getting it out to bid earlier. And so that's why we're working with HCD a lot and pushing them really hard to make this project work. But so anyway, a long story there. We think we're really at the end of making this happen. And so I'll be happy to address any questions that I can. We have the map included in here. This is almost 8 miles of road reconstruction. What's really been described. So I should go back really quick. We're expecting sort of 2 tranches of funding through this program, where the HCD is telling us that they're going to give each eligible jurisdiction an allocation number based on the notice of interest we submitted. So if we do get, say, essentially the $14 million allocation that we requested, we would be able to move forward with this project this year. And then we would actually start the design on the Arrowhead and Burns Valley project. And we should be eligible to complete that, say, next season. There's probably not enough time to get that done this year, but that's kind of our best case scenario and our hope with this funding source.
Are there any questions for the manager? No? We'll open the public hearing. Do we have any comments from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I've not received any email comments or comments on our open town hall, and there are no hands raised in Zoom.
Bring it back to the council. Any other questions? Any
Just a quick question on the resolution number. Is it 13 or 11? The attachment says 11 at the top, but I think everything else says 13.
The resolution number is 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm ready to. Are we ready for a resolution?
Entertain a motion here?
Motion.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we adopt resolution number 2021-13, read by title only, resolution approving an allocation of funding and an application for funding and execution of a grant agreement and any amendments thereto from the CDBG-DR program and/or the CDBG-MIT program.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Craigler and a second by Vice Mayor Kurgan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to city manager's report.
Yes, thank you. Just a few items. So we continue to work on what we're at this point still calling the Burns Valley Recreation Center. We received our geotech report today. Our engineer's been working on the design, and we're expecting to have another meeting with our committee in 2 weeks. We are going out to bid, or maybe it's already been sent out, I'm not sure, for removal of the walnut trees on that property. Number of things in the process there, which is really exciting. A few things in Austin Park. Mayor Sloan may want to talk about this, but the Rotary Club has acquired funding to do exercise equipment both at Austin Park and a little bit at the senior center, but we're doing a little bit of work on the design of that. I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. We're also working on design for the splash pad that we've talked about, and my expectation is that we'll build that this year. And then, of course, the Promenade Bus Stop project, we had to go out to bid again, so we're waiting on those bids to come back. Those are 3 big projects to add additional amenities to Austin Park, which we're exciting. So you're also all aware that we put up the fencing around the lawn areas of the park this week for the hydro seeding to start next week. I believe the hydro seeding company contacted us maybe today and said that they're concerned about the rain event coming, being larger than expected, and they want to delay that work for another week. So it's, really unfortunate that we put that fence up and that had to happen, but we don't want all that fertilizer running off, into the lake. So we're going to probably have the fence up a week longer than expected. Vaccinations continue at Redbud Park. We have kind of public health and working with Chief Cepeda. They requested kind of a redo of the flow there. They asked me to come out last Friday. They have a lot of activity out there, and they're concerned about traffic backing up on Lakeshore Drive. Actually didn't go out there today, so I don't know if the new plan worked any better or not, but still kind of trying to work through some of that. You may have seen that the county announced a tax sale, another tax sale coming up in June. 490 properties, roughly half of those in the city of Clearlake. So it's good to see a little bit of progress there. I do want to add, make the council aware we are doing a little bit of analysis on this, but some of these properties have been offered before, and we're able to get information on the minimum bids of those properties that have been previously offered have been lowered. The board took action on this earlier this week, I believe, and there wasn't information in the packet. Was able to get information, so we're doing an analysis on that. I mean, one of the impacts I want the council to be aware of, and we're going to look into this a little bit more, is there really isn't any communication on how those minimum bids are reduced, and it looks like we have almost $200,000 worth of abatement liens on those properties that essentially will be wiped out if the properties are sold at those prices. And so, while it is great to see those properties, be put back into use, those are liens that we had put on that property, expecting to be reimbursed at some point in the future for direct costs that we incurred in cleaning up those properties. So, that's kind of a disappointing thing to see, but we're going to look into that a little bit more and come back to the council as appropriate. Just 2 more things. As you know, the American Rescue Act was passed by the House and is being debated in the Senate at this point. One of the things that we got word of today, if you saw your League of Cities bulletins, unfortunately, what we were expecting to be direct assistance over 2.8 million to the city of Clearlake related to COVID. It looks like that direct local assistance, they're now beginning to negotiate away. And at this point, it looks like it's being reduced by at least $10 billion. And we don't know exactly how that's going to impact us, but they're taking that 10 billion and creating a fund for some coronavirus capital improvements fund, which, I don't know. It's just really frustrating. I mean, the CDBG funding that we got through the CARES Act, we still haven't gotten a single dollar of that at this point. And the impacts to our senior center throughout this have been immense, and there's a lot of improvements we need to be made. And we were hopeful that this direct assistance would be a way for us to really address the local needs that we see here without all those strings attached, but it seems to be heading in a similar direction this time as well. And then one other, not to leave you with a string of bad news, but Chief White informed me, I think it was earlier this week, that one of the most effective tools we have in our code enforcement box has been the innovations that have came up with our administrative citation ordinance and then further our ability to have intercepts through the franchise tax board for those citations is something that really gets people's attention. Unfortunately, the governor has suspended that program into, I think it's a date in either June or July at this point. And so none of those intercepts will happen for quite a number of months now. I did reach out to our state legislature and express our displeasure with this. Of course, they said they passed that along to the governor's office, but haven't gotten any calls. Anyway, with that, that's my report.
All right. Councilman Kramer, any exciting things?
I think I've already talked enough tonight, so I don't really have anything to report. One or two meetings that I was supposed to attend didn't happen, including one this morning. I am going to CalCog doing a Zoom conference next week. So I'll let you know how that goes afterwards.
All right, Councilman, over to you.
The only thing I have to say is I'll be having the League of Cities, our division meeting on Friday. It's going to be, of course, be a Zoom meeting. And of course, all council members that have gotten notices on that. So, and then just remember that we'll be having our salmon, we have something on the fundraiser? Our salmon fundraiser. It's going to be honey garlic salmon. It sounds really good to me. On the 26th for the Senior Center Meals on Wheels fundraiser that will be that'll raise those funds. So hope everybody supports it in our community.
I do have one quick do-over.
Go ahead.
To announce again, Lower Lake Community Action Group corned beef dinner next 13th of March, takeout dinner. If you're interested, talk to me later.
Councilman Clapper.
Just met again with the leadership at CC4C. We've been talking about some shoestring projects that we might be able to pull off over in Clearlake Park. So I'm excited about that, and hopefully I'll have more information there. And then just wanted to thank the city manager and Downtown Strategies again for that presentation earlier today. I think there's a lot of great best practices that came out of that, and I think there's an opportunity for the city to lead the chart, but I also think there's an opportunity for the community to follow that. So if you're interested in getting involved after that, please reach out.
All right, Vice Mayor Purdue, anything exciting?
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing to report.
Anyway, I did see that I went down to the Redwood Park, and I think one of the issues was that the wind played havoc with the vaccination process there. That was pretty awesome. I think my wife was bringing 84-year-old neighbor to do this thing, and they sat in the car for over 2 hours. And that probably had something to do with it. But the fact that that was possible.
Where to go?
For the rest, I don't have a whole lot except what City Manager Laura mentioned, that Rotary has ordering the equipment. Obviously, we're pretty excited.
Did
For the rest, I don't have anything else.
Red Bud Health District, did they contribute to?
Yeah, the Redwood Health District contributed $35,000. Yeah, like 3 of them, we ordered 13 pieces, and 3 of them are going to go to the senior center. It is awesome equipment. As you know, Russ and I personally tested the equipment out.
Thank you.
All right,
Press C.
if nothing else, hearing, and we'll return to closed session. If there's no other future agenda item.
No, sir.